Hi, Professor Fiorelli. For my interpreting nonfiction assignment, I chose to analyze Jennifer Niesleen's work, It's Complicated, a critical nonfiction piece published in the Joy of Writing issue by creativenonfiction.com. Beginning with the thesis, it's based on the work of Martin E.P. Seligman, widely considered the grandfather of positive psychology, in that Niesleen applies his delineation between pleasures, such as joy, and gratifications like excitement, relaxation, and delight. Niesleen argues that simple emotional pleasures, of which joy are one, in writing is overrated, and that it's much better to focus on reaching an emotionless flow state, or at the very least, benefit the greater good. She supports this thesis through her discussion of short-lived pleasures in writing and how indulging in them too much can lead to diminishing returns, such as resorting to literary masturbation instead of authorial pride. She also makes a pun about writers who tend to struggle with execution because they aren't operating with a strong enough motivation. Then she proceeds to discuss this elusive emotionless flow state and how it can produce some of the best writing, both for her and other authors like Julia Tausch. Finally, she connects this writing to... She proceeds to discounter this argument, however, by talking about the necessity of emotion in writing less than positive works. But her overall point is to talk about the bigger picture and connect this to a higher purpose where writing is a calling, not a job. And in order to reach that point, it's important for writers to pursue gratification instead of pleasure in the form of helping their readers by inspiring them to think differently about the world and change their perspectives. When I consider Niesleen's attitude on this subject, I realize it's very definitive, which leads to her creative nonfiction article reading more like a blog post than an informational work. This makes sense if we consider the context of what she's writing about, however, since connecting with readers is the source of this higher purpose gratification. It only follows she would attempt to do the same in her work through many of these like parenthetical interruptions, such as all of which are highlighted in kind of this darker orange color. Her initial focus on Seligman's work in the field of positive psychology is helpful in portraying the truth behind her words, simply because he's a well-regarded, credible source and conducted empirically validated studies on this subject. However, as her article progresses, she quickly moves away from this initial focus to assert more of her subjective opinions. In the end, I believe she sacrifices truth in favor of audience connection. I became aware of my interpretive biases about the quality of this source given my reaction to her writing style and what we've been taught in multimodal communications about what makes a great scholarly source. I recognize that this is creative, not fiction, not precisely scholarly work, but she does reference the work of reputable individuals like Seligman, and I won't even try to pronounce his name, but he's another respectable psychologist, which would suggest some level of objectivity and recognition for other interpretations of their research and this topic as a whole. For example, in my background research, I read a piece by Bruce Perry, a doctor in early childhood development, that discusses the necessity of pleasure and play in developing both children and adult problem-solving abilities, a critical component to achieving a goal. And when we consider the importance of goals in growing self-efficacy to produce great writing, discussed by Skunk and Swartz in this scholarly article on contemporary educational philosophy, the inclusion of pleasure in the writing process starts to appear much more important. Louise Aronson, the author of an identically titled article, The Joy of Writing, argues that the best writing of her students comes from their emotional effect on a particular topic, not in spite of it, even when they aren't aware of it. Performing this research paradoxically helped me to minimize my interpretive biases about Niesleen's work because it showed me the prevalence of viewpoints on this question with no right answer, and thus re-emphasized the importance of maintaining an open mind about all of them. Learning about Niesleen's liberal and self-help writing background helped me to better understand her apparent fondness of these anecdotal interruptions referenced before, disregarding formality in favor of a personal touch. I learned that in 2015 she published Soulmate 101 and other essays on love and sex, which gave me a better idea of her genre of writing and thus her own personal interpretive biases about the importance of reader benefits, as well as which form these come in. Aisling genuinely wants to help her reader audience, but in the process compromises on her credibility as an objective source on this topic. No creative nonfiction writer can completely eliminate their biases and subjectivity, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't try.